Well, good afternoon, everyone. We will make a start. Welcome to everybody. You've done really well because you've nearly doubled the morning attendance. How's that? Yeah, we had a pretty small number this morning. A few people pulled out because of colds and things, which is really great because it just shows that we're all taking this pretty seriously. So it wasn't very encouraging to hear the Victorian total of new cases today. So we need to keep respecting all our disinfecting and our distancing. So today, even when there will be a time when we will talk a little bit in small groups. So it's fine for us to gather around in a small group, but respect the distancing. And for the rest of the time, again, just as a reminder, the reason we're seated like this is that the idea is that when we sing to the front. And I won't stay here, I'll go out of the way. So we sing to the front where we're not singing into other people. So that's the precautions that we'll respect. And at the end of this, I'll be asking for a couple of people to help with disinfecting surfaces and so on. But that seems to be going pretty well, so really happy about the way people are cooperating with all that. So it's good to come back into a situation where we can worship together, and we're going to start with a song that I think we all know well, The Heart of Worship. It reminds us that why we come before God and what really matters when we do. So it's, you can sit or you can stand and sing.
I know how to use that thing. You're fine. You can.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just can't find the song.
Oh. Oh, yeah, okay. Yep. Change the song.
Now is the time to worship. Come. Now is the time to give your heart. Come, just as you are to worship. Come, just as you are. Now Now is the time to worship. Come. Now is the time to give your heart. Come, just as you are to worship. Come, just as you are before your God. Come.
And the next one, you are the everlasting God.
Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. Our God, you reign forever. Our hope, our strong deliverer. You are the everlasting God. The everlasting God, you do not fade, you won't grow weary. You're a defender of the weak. You comfort those in need. You lift us up on wings like eagles. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. Strength will rise as we wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. We will wait upon the Lord. Our God, you reign forever. Our hope, our strong deliverer. You are the everlasting God, the everlasting God. You do not fade, you won't grow weary. You're the defender of the weak. You comfort those in need. You lift us up on wings like eagles. You are the everlasting God, the everlasting God. You do not fade, you won't grow weary. You're the defender of the weak. You comfort those in need. You lift us up on wings like eagles.
Please be seated. That's a really great song, but lots of that little metaphor as God lifts us up like wings of an eagle, and as we know, or probably most of us know, the mother eagle soaring way high above the earth with her young tucked away under her wings, protected. They will not fall down even though it's in a precarious situation that they're in. And God is like that with us. A fantastic image of His love and His care and His protection of us. And good to remember at a time like this, isn't it? So we're going to move straight into communion today, and we're going to do this differently today. So we're going to just look at a passage which is a really beautiful passage, one of the really lovely passages in the New Testament, from 2 Corinthians chapter 5. And the whole chapter is good, but right at the end of it, right at the end, the last verse, 21, says, God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. So as we come to remember what Jesus did when he gave his life on the cross, we remember with gratitude that he took our sin. And because of that, God looks at us and says, you are righteous, which is absolutely amazing. That is amazing grace, which we also sing about. But the interesting thing about this these few verses that Paul writes here is, if we go back at the start of this, at verse 15, and then another verse, it gives us two things. So this is what, when we celebrate this, and in a moment we'll take some bread and we'll drink some juice together, but that tells us what it actually means. The cross means that Jesus has stood in our place and takes the penalty of our sin. Okay? But these two things now remind us of what this means for us in our own lives from day to day. So here's the first one. Paul says, and he died for all, that those who live, that's all of us, those who live, should live no longer for themselves, but for him who died for them and was raised again. So the first thing is, if we accept this and we identify with what Jesus did for us, we live no longer for ourselves, but for him. First thing. The second thing is in verse 19. It says, God was reconciling the world to himself in Christ, not counting men's sins against them, and he has committed to us the message of reconciliation. So as a result of this, God has made peace between us and him through the cross, and now it says that he has committed to us, all of us, his message of reconciliation. So that means that we practice reconciliation in our own lives, between us and God. We make sure that even if things are not right between us and God, we come to him, we confess, and we remember his sacrifice for us, and we make things right. But we also practice reconciliation with one another. So two ongoing things as a result of what we celebrate here in communion a couple of times a month in our church, but it doesn't matter how many times we celebrate it. The point is what we are remembering. So we're going to take part in communion now, and what we're going to suggest, we did this in the morning, so starting from our down, if we just come up this way, take either your bread or your biscuit, whatever you prefer, take your drink. These are disposable cups, by the way, so when we finish with the cups, we just throw them away. So take your drink and the juice at the same time, and then go back to your seat. So if we start and just follow through that way, we'll do that. And just feel free to eat your bread in an attitude of reflection, and then hold on to your cups until we can all drink together. So as we drink our juice, let's drink with thanksgiving because of what Jesus has done for us. Let's drink. Now, when we were thinking about today's message, we're going to do this in two parts today. So I'm going to take this bit and then Scott will take the second part. But we've just participated in communion, and we know that communion, we have juice, but it's usually wine. So in the time of Jesus, it was wine, and wine was a normal part of life in the time of Jesus. We know that, and Jesus even refers to, when we look at some of the passages that we usually think of when we do communion, Jesus refers to it as the fruit of the wine, the fruit of the grape. And so we're thinking about this theme about wine today, and we're going to look at a couple of verses in a moment, but just a moment, Sarah. I just want to recount a little funny incident that I've seen. And this morning, has anyone heard of black books?
Oh, yes.
Well, in the morning session, they didn't know about it. So there you go. I'm glad people will recognize it. So I explained it as, if you don't know black books, it's like the Fawlty Towers of the bookshop industry. So Basil Fawlty, you never want to go to him, to his cafe, because his customer service is really bad. And you don't want to go to Bernard, who runs Black Books, because his customer service is terrible. But so Bernard has an assistant called Manny, and Manny's like the good guy. It's like bad cop, good cop. So Manny's like the guy who's trying to do things right. Tries a bit too hard, mind you, sometimes. Anyway, there's this episode where they have to leave their premises for a little while, and a rich friend of theirs gives them accommodation in his nice house. And before he leaves to go wherever he has to go to, he takes Manny down to the cellar, and it's full of wine. And he says to Manny, you can you can have whatever you want from this wine, but this wine over here is really special. It's really old, and I'm not a connoisseur of wine, but we know that the older wine is, the more special it is. And so he says to Manny, but this over here, don't drink this because I'm keeping this. This is really precious. This, cost a lot of money, and I'm keeping this for some special person that he was going to give it to. So Manny goes, yeah, sure, that's good. So he brings Bernard to the house, and the first thing he does is takes Bernard to the cellar, and he says to him, look at this, and he points out the wine to him, but guess what he does? He gets it wrong. So he says to Bernard, we can't drink that, but we can drink this, totally opposite. So, and the rest of the episode is the fact that after they've opened a few bottles of the really precious wine, they realise that it was the wrong wine, so they spend the rest of the time trying to make their own brew and replace the bottles that they used up. So that's just a lead-in to this, these verses in the scriptures about wine, and something that Jesus did. So if we could have that slide, please, Sarah. So this is like the background to what Jesus says. So here we go. I have come to call not those who think that they're righteous, but those who know they are sinners and need to repent. One day, some people said to Jesus, "John the Baptist's disciples fast and pray regularly, and so do the disciples of the Pharisees." So the Pharisees were the people who knew the law, the Old Testament law, really well. They were like the religious teachers, they were the experts. The disciples of Pharisees, they fast. And these people say to Jesus, "Why are your disciples always eating and drinking?" In other words, they're having a go at him. They're saying to him, "Your disciples are not fasting. All these other disciples of John and Pharisees fast, but your disciples are not fasting. How come?" And then Jesus gave them this illustration. "No one tears a piece of cloth from a new garment and uses it to patch an old garment. For then the new garment would be ruined, and the new patch wouldn't even match the old garment. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins. For the new wine would burst the wineskins, spilling the wine and ruining the skins. New wine must be stored in new wineskins." And then this little tricky little verse. "But no one who drinks the old wine seems to want the new wine. The old is just fine," they say. Okay, so I would like now if we could get into groups, maybe. The same thing came up last time. Do you mind? Do you guys mind doing it together? Do you want to join this group, Steve, please? And maybe we just form a group of about 4, maybe Sandy to Adan. You have one group there. You can just bring your chairs around. Yeah, so from Lorraine to this kind of group here. Sarah, if you want to, you can join Debbie and Margaret's group. And so I'd just like you to answer. Now, please don't try to go too deeply into this, because this is what I'm asking you to answer. First question. Just looking at what you've seen here. First question: what point is Jesus making about new and old? Now that's all I'm asking you to do. He's using two illustrations, cloth and wine. What point is he trying to make about new and old, in your opinion? What do you think? And the second one, what point do you think he's making when he says, some people say the old is just fine. So, even if you just get to the first question, that's okay. But, first question, what point is Jesus making about new and old? Secondly, what's the point of verse 39? So just go for it and see how you go. Don't jump. Can I just say, don't jump to try and be really extra spiritual about it. Just look at what is written here. Old patch, new patch of garment, old wine, new wine. What's he trying to say? What's he saying about old and new?
Something exactly the same.
All bottles of wine.
Like a piece of clothing. Like your jumper. Yeah. So if your jumper gets a hole, I'm not going to go to Target, buy a new jumper and just rip a patch off and try to replace the hole in the fitting. So that's going to wreck the new one. It won't look very good on the old one.
No, it doesn't.
No, it's going to...
It might just be too that the treat new is new, the treat old is old.
in wines.
I'd say the old covenant with Jesus as God of the Bible. People still rely on the first picture of the war of the old covenant when Jesus
Because Jesus he bring new ideas, new way to people just follow him.
So is that then what saying in 39?
It doesn't belong to
That
Jesus.
people who are doing it consistent ways don't want to change to the new testament because they say, oh, the old way is just
It's like the Egyptians, sometimes
So if you strip it right back to, as Jeremy said, you get rid of too deep with it. You just purely look at wine. So if you're, I'm not a wine connoisseur, I drink a lot of, I don't drink.
I don't think you drink wine.
But I know that there's old wine and there's new wine. So if the old wine, some people will say, or a wine buff will say, an old aged wine is very valuable, it tastes really good. But then somebody new or young comes along who's not like me, I would taste an old wine and I go, I don't get it. Same thing for somebody that's stuck with that's a wine buff and just into the old wine, comes across a brand new wine. I go, this tastes pretty good because I'm new to this. I like it, it tastes sweet, it tastes good. But a person who loves the old one goes and tastes the new one and goes, no, I don't like it. So that's the stripping it right back to what Jesus was saying, talking about the wine. That's wine is the actual content, and that's might not appreciate the old, and someone that's in the old might not appreciate the new.
So I'm going
You're right, and what you're saying, the Pharisees were stuck in the old, they really want to taste it.
I'm going to wind you up, and there's some really good discussion. I can hear snippets of it. So sorry if you didn't finish both questions. I'm going to wind you up. So if you could put your seats back and try and keep your distance in as best as you were before. And I meant to say a greeting to people who will be watching us at home. I'm really sorry because in the morning we taped the service, and we've decided to tape it again because we weren't too happy with how a couple of things went not quite right. So greetings to everyone joining us maybe on Monday as you watch this. Or is it not?
It's working, it's okay.
So, very quickly, the first question, now just answer from your group. Like, I didn't ask you to appoint a spokesperson, but someone from one of the groups, tell me what point was Jesus making about new and old? I'm not asking you for a great interpretation of the spiritual concept, and you can say that if you want, but what's the main point about new and old? Anyone?
They don't fit together.
They don't fit together. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to add to that? Pardon? Acceptance? That, sorry, you have to elaborate with another sentence there.
Well, always want to meet new people.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to always be we Taiwan. We don't have to shove away the ideas.
Okay, so there are people think differently, or
Yes.
right? Okay, right. Okay, but the point. Does anyone want to add to that other point about new and old don't mix?
But they can coexist.
That's very good, Debbie.
That's what they all worked out. So
We're coming to that. Don't say any more, because everyone will go home.
If we keep with the old, but allow new ideas and
Yep, well,
they can complement.
you are on the right track, and if you were in this group of Jesus's opponents, he would say, Debbie, you stand there, because I won't need you later. We're getting in the right sort of direction there. So, yeah, basic, I think I had another slide. Can you get the next slide? This is just, so this kind of looks a bit funny, but these are the wineskins in the kind of time we might be thinking about. They're usually animal skins, and I think that would be probably an example of an older wineskin. And you can see how it's sort of like a bit crinkly and stuff, and the other one looks kind of smooth. And the point of that would be that if you put new wine into that, because it needs time to ferment, the skins are very dry and even cracked because they're old. And the wine might leak or even burst the skin. And so you need a new skin which is supple, and it allows the wine to do its work. That's the kind of the point of that illustration. The garment one, well, I think you've got the point. New and old don't mix. So Jesus, remember what we just read before that? What was happening just before Jesus gave this illustration? What was happening to Jesus? What were people asking him? In what?
Why don't your disciples fast or whatever too as well?
That's right. So they were challenging, weren't they? They were not. They were sort of opposing the way he was acting. Now Jesus. Sorry. Yeah. In the system that they were used to, and even John the Baptist was a sort of he was not totally popular, but he was also respected because his disciples are fasting. In the tradition, there were certain rules about fasting, and they were doing that. Now, Jesus was not against fasting, because in other parts we know that he said, he basically assumed that when we pray we fast in certain places. So he wasn't against fasting. But he said to them, you don't have to be fasting when the bridegroom is here. Who did he mean by the bridegroom? He meant himself. He's saying, I'm here now, and I brought you something new, and when the bridegroom's here, you don't have to fast. He's making the point, in his coming, something new has arrived. And then he says, there will be a time for fasting, but not now. So he's making the point of something new that he's brought. And what he's trying to basically say, and a couple of you have sort of basically hinted on this, is that he's saying that God's message has always been a good message. It's been a right message. So back in the Old Testament, now I have to say something. This morning, in perhaps out of one statement that was made, someone said, "Oh, Jesus is saying, it's like the Old Testament is not good." They were saying, this is a comparison between the Old Testament and the New Testament. It's not as clear-cut as that, in the sense that, yes, it is about the things that God's people were used to in the Old Testament. God's message was still good. God was a God of salvation. We're just saying, He is an everlasting God. They celebrated that. That was good. But out of that grew a whole lot of ways that you had to show that you were acceptable before God. So for instance, when you went to ask God for forgiveness for your sin, you had to go, as we all know, you had to go to the priest and you had to make a sacrifice. You know, you might have to give a pigeon or a lamb or a goat as a sacrifice, so the priest would kill that, and because of that blood that was shed, then that was the way of getting forgiven by God. So that was a ritual that people had to do. Another thing that would happen, and it happened in Jesus' day, and we know that he was attacked by people for this. If you were coming, for instance, if you were coming to church this afternoon and you saw an accident, and it's Sunday, you're coming to church on Sunday, and you saw an accident and you stopped to help somebody, say somebody was hurt and you stopped to go and give them some help or comfort. In Jesus' day, the Pharisees would have said to him, you shouldn't be doing that because it's the Sabbath. This is the holy day. You shouldn't be helping that person. And Jesus got into a lot of trouble because he said, hang on, the Sabbath might be a holy day, but God gave that for us. And it's not wrong to go and help somebody. God wouldn't want you not to help someone just because it's the Sabbath. So there were rules like that that people carried over into the time of Jesus, and Jesus said, this is you are trying to take an old message into a new time, which is the time that I have now come, and I've said to you, we said before, we don't have to go anymore to the priest and make a sacrifice, because Jesus is our sacrifice once and for all. Jesus said, this is a new time, this is new wine, and you can't mix the way you practiced your religion in the past with the new, because you'll smother the new. You won't let the message, the new message, the message of my forgiveness for all people and my acceptance of all people, you'll smother that message if you try to close it up in certain ways and kind of get locked into the old system. So he was saying, this is a new message and we need new structures in which to practice this message. Now, Scott will elaborate on that, so if you've still got some questions, that's a good thing, because we haven't quite finished with that. But I just want to show you this quote. Next slide, please. Oh, maybe...
It's coming.
No.
I think.
That, this quote. So, this is like a summary of the passage. Jesus insists the gospel of the kingdom must not be hindered by the man-made rules of the Pharisees' religion. It must be free to work its power unfettered. The new wine may not be as smooth to the tongue and finely aged as old wine. It may be a bit sharp and unrefined, but it is alive. You can't contain it in old structures. You must find new wineskins for it or none at all. Okay, so we will continue that in a moment, but we're just going to have a song. So the song we're going to sing is, Mighty to Save. You found that one?
Yes.
Everyone needs compassion, love that's never failing. Let mercy fall on me. Everyone needs forgiveness, everything I believe in. Now I surrender. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Shed a light and let the whole world see. Singing for the glory of the risen King. Jesus, shed a light and let the whole world see. We're singing for the glory of the risen King. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave. Savior, He can move the mountains. My God is mighty to save. He is mighty to save. Forever, author of salvation. He rose and conquered the grave. Jesus conquered the grave.
Jeremy mentioned that if you had any more questions, I might answer them. I might leave you with more questions. Who knows? I might hopefully be able to answer a few questions for you as well about what these wineskins are, or these new wineskins. So if we've discovered the new message in Jesus, that Jesus was bringing to us, but these new wineskins, that this message goes into are the things that become a bit more practical. The sort of what can we do in amongst all of this message. So if we're talking about wineskins, if we're looking at, I just want to have a look at first of all this verse from Hebrews chapter 4 verse 16, and it says, "Let us approach God's throne of grace with confidence, so that we may receive mercy and find grace to help us in this time of need." Never before, I suppose, in my life, has my faith or my understanding of God the Protector been so prominent in circumstances within our environment, I guess, because we can ourselves project a message of confidence in amongst this virus that's going on. Because you see so many, and yes, we need to be concerned, we need to be watchful about things, but if we are reliant on our God, then we need to be rest assured that He's going to protect us. He is ultimately in control. And I think that we can actually project that message to other people in confidence as well. I know lots of people that just stress out and get worried about all sorts of situations relating to the virus, and as I said, yeah, you need to be watchful. You still need to be watchful and not sort of blasé about everything. But it's a confidence that we can have. And so that sort of confidence there is held in ourselves. And so if we talk about wineskins and this message, the old wineskin that Jesus was talking about is potentially all the temples that were used as places of worship. And if we consider the church here as a wineskin, it's a holder of the content, I guess. If we're looking at wineskins, what are wineskins? They're the holder of the wine. And the wine is the message, it's the content. If the wine is just allowed to leave without the wineskin, where does it go? It just pours out all over the floor and becomes null and void. So, a quick question. What would we consider, if we're talking about the old wineskin being the temples or I guess the church structure, what could be considered a new wineskin today? What can we consider a new wineskin? New Christians, yeah. Yeah. It's, if we look at the wineskin as being the holder of the content, then yeah, absolutely, that can be considered a new wineskin. New denomination. So that message is contained, yep, within that structure. Yep. Anything else if we're to look at this new message being contained within a new wineskin? What are the new wineskins?
Or even like a new church. It might be still under the same denomination, but it's a new plan, so to speak.
Yep. Yep. And we see that in amongst a lot of communities as well. Yep.
The internet, getting the message out.
Yeah, yeah. The internet is a means by which to get the message out. Yep, absolutely. Would we consider the op shop a new wineskin?
Yes.
Yep. Would we consider the Strawberries and Cherries Festival a new wineskin?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
Yep. So there's things around that become that new wineskin as such, because the wineskin is the holder of the message. We need to also discern God's direction, and we need to open our eyes when He opens doors. If we look at James chapter 2 verses 14 to 17, what good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking a daily food, and one of you says to them, "Go in peace, be warm and filled," without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. This becomes that whole argument between, well, are my deeds going to get me into heaven, or is it my faith that's going to get me into heaven? Well, it's kind of a mixture of both. And Jesus is saying within these passages, well, the new message He's bringing, but it's not going to fit into the old structure as such. If we consider today within our church some of the things that we've been talking about over the last 18 months, this message to get out into the community. Getting out into the community is the new wineskin that we need to work out. How do we get this new message out into the community? It's a new message that it's amazing to think has been around for so long. We go, well, is it a new message when it was Jesus spoke it nearly 2,000 years ago? Well, it is a new message because we ourselves find out different parts of that almost each and every day. Because you can read the passages we've read today, you've probably read them many times before, but perhaps today you've actually found out something new. And so that also forms part of the development of this new message that comes in. So we ourselves need to be recreated as new wineskins as well. But we also need to be remaining faithful, and it was mentioned before about new Christians, that God is knocking on the door of each and every person's heart. We've got the verse behind us, "I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I'll come and eat with that person, and they will eat with me." So God is working in each and every person's life, trying to create that new wineskin for somebody to receive that new message into. Now, Jesus didn't go to a man like Zacchaeus and say, well, I'm going to take you, you're up the tree, you're trying to get this message. You're somebody that people frown upon, I guess, in certain circumstances as well. How about we go to the temple? I'll get you a big lunch and we can have lunch and I'll talk to you there at the temple. No, He said, I'm going to go to your house. I'm coming to your house to eat. So this new message couldn't be taken back to the old way, because Zacchaeus is going to go, I don't want to go there because it sort of freaks me out a little bit. I'm not meant to go. Well, it's actually probably not meant to go there. The Pharisees are going to go, what's this guy doing here? We don't want him here. Out. So the old and the new. So we need to be understanding of that this new message, that's what Jesus is saying. This new message needs to be put into new wineskins. We need to have new structures and new ways of getting this message out there. But we also need to be, I guess, refreshing our own selves as wineskins as well. It says in Galatians 6:10, so then as we have an opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially those who are of the household of faith. How are our wineskins? The message is there, but are we refreshing our own wineskin to take in those new messages? So if we're learning something new, are we just disregarding it because our minds are not able to adapt into this and take on this new message? Or are we able to refresh sometimes? So we need to consider ourselves as wineskins. I have finally bowed to encouragement of Susan to go to her gym and do exercise classes, because my gym, I've been funding my gym for a while and not attending, so I'm going to another one. But if you consider the message of that and trying to get a bit of a fitness base into this body, well, this body didn't. It coped a little bit with the spin class. The spin class is cycling, only for half an hour. But my knees are kind of paying for it at the moment. They're here. In here is sort of hurting at the moment. But that's like a new message that's been, this fitness thing is a new message. It doesn't quite fit into this body, into this wineskin at the moment. But over time, if I go more regularly, which is on the cards, it will. And I'll be able to cycle and I won't get sore anymore and it'll be all good. And then I can maybe do some other classes and things like that. But we also just need to be refining ourselves to be able to hear this new message. We also need to be coming up with new wineskins to get the message out to the community. We had a relaunch of the community garden last year, and there's some exciting things that discussions and things that we're talking about, and we'll actually learn a little bit more next week. But if we just go, well, we're going to open up the community garden, that's the message, that's the wineskin for people to come into our grounds. Because if we invite people to a Sunday service, well, we've got 4 o'clock and we've got 10:30, then they may not come. They're probably not going to come. Some will, some won't. But if we say we've got a pizza night and we've got a community garden where there's swapping of food and things like that, well, people are going to come. So we've got to bring about a new wineskin. And then we get the opportunity to share that new message. But as we've said, we can't just discard the old. Some people will be in the old. But if we don't recognise the old wineskin, how do we make a new one? So if somebody comes into the wineskin making business, and I'm not in that game, you might be surprised at that, but I'm not in the game of wineskin making. But if I was, I'd be looking to the old wineskins to work out how I make the new one and how I improve on the old and make a better new. If you've ever made something, or you might have baked a cake, or you might have built a structure, and you build it, and you look at it and you go, let's just see if that works. And you come back the next day, and you find it has worked. Well, you've learnt something from that, and then you go, right, that works. So if I do this next time, in a similar way, if I adapt to it, if I bring in some new parts, it's going to make this better. Yeah? So all of these sort of things, we just can't disregard the old. So all of the time, but we need to be recognising the new. If you are aware of the MCG, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, AFL Cricket Olympics, it's in the city. We can't go there without a mask quite like as a Thursday, but if you were to go there, you can go there and see the MCG. Now they've just redeveloped it over the last few years. So as of sort of 1990, 1992, getting ready for the Commonwealth Games, they started one of the stands, they made it new, and then over the period of the next 15 years or so, they started building the rest of it. Now, are you aware of the MCC Members Pavilion? Melbourne Cricket Club Members Pavilion. It's a beautiful old structure of the old MCG. So we've been watching it. I've been seeing a few old games of footy and cricket on TV recent, and you know, from the 80s, and you see the big, beautiful Melbourne Cricket Club Members Pavilion. Old structure and that. So when they're building this new facilities, a lot of people are going, well, we can't get rid of this old structure. It's protected. We don't want to lose it. But in the interest of coming into the 21st century, they needed to, because the stand wouldn't hold up. It wouldn't hold the capacity that they want to hold. It wouldn't go into the modernisation of where they wanted to go. But they were able to redesign it, learning and taking from the old, and adapt it into the new. And if you notice it now, if you have a look at it when it was back, when it was old and where it is now, it has held the colours, it's held a lot of the nostalgic tradition of what that stand was. It didn't just disregard all of the old, it took it and learned from it and worked with the people